Hey Google, who is the CEO of Earthlink Alliance? Oh, there goes. There goes my phone. All right, cool. This is working. Good.
According to LinkedIn, Eric Chan, Chief Executive
Oh, damn, son.
Can we see this? Oh, I'm just gonna put this up to the camera. Look at that. That is the answer I'm looking for. Thank you. All right, cool.
I'm already on Google voice search optimization.
Done.
How sweet
Well,
is that?
well, Eric Chan, thanks for coming here. You are the CEO of Earthlink Alliance, and that's an amazing thing that you're doing. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about what that is.
Nah, thanks, man. Awesome to be here. So how cool is that?
That was so cool.
Yeah, because I only had this position for the past maybe a month, and I wouldn't think that I'll be voice search optimized already, right? So that's the power of Google and LinkedIn.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so CEO at Earthlink Alliance, we have a mutual friend, Johan Noguera, who's been successful in business,
Absolutely.
owns quite a few businesses, and it's actually quite an amazing story. So Johan owns the company My Alliance, which you know about, right? That does like the apps and the web development and all that. And he was a supplier for this company called Earthlink Design, who did web design and web integration. And what he said was that after a while, the work started to come in slower and slower, and he didn't understand why. And he rang up Andrew, who is his friend inside Earthlink Design, who's one of the partners and owners, and said, "Hey mate, what's going on? It seems like there's been a huge drop off in the numbers and consistency of the work." And it turns out that Andrew's business partner, who's also his mentor, much older than he is, was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh.
Yeah, and is in sort of like the later stages of the cancer where he needs to concentrate on his health, right? And Andrew was planning to sell the business and go work in some other job because, he's more technical minded. He didn't feel like he wanted to run the business all by himself. So Andrew decided to sell the business, and Johan thought to himself, "Mate, you're unemployable. Someone who's worked in a business for themselves in 18 years, you can't go back to an admin job." So they went and looked at the business and decided that, okay, this might be quite viable. So he acquired the business. And originally the plan was to merge the two businesses together. No, sorry, the plan was to absorb Earthlink Design into My Alliance and just take, the customer list and so on. But then he decided to merge the two businesses together to create, so Earthlink Design, My Alliance, Earthlink Alliance, and create this new entity with a new focus, new brand, and new vision.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what happened was Johan asked a bunch of us to come together separately, and originally I didn't want to be part of this because I didn't want to get another job, right? That's the thing about being in business. You leave a job to go into business, and you tell everyone that it's all about freedom and I don't have to worry about that anymore. And you get anchored to this identity where you're more free, right? Even though most entrepreneurs, like you would know, work 80 hours in a 40-hour week. But he said, no, you think about what you want to do, what you don't want to do, and I'll let you have that. And that was really cool. So after a couple of weeks of working together, looking at the viability of the business, it was all happening. And when everyone put up their hand to ask for which position they want, I put my hand up for CEO and they all gave it to me.
Nice.
So that's how I got to
well done.
this position. Yeah.
This is not your first business.
This is not my first business. No.
You've done quite. You started off in speaking, teaching people how to create their own scripts and getting over the fear of public speaking, right?
Yeah, that's right. It actually, funny enough, the way that I started all of this is when I went to my very first networking meeting. I had a coaching background, like life coaching and all that. That's to do with my medical research job, which we can get into a bit later. But I came into small business through the coaching world. And then what happened was I went to a networking meeting called the Business Marketplace. I don't know if you've heard of the Business Marketplace before. It's a local one in South Melbourne.
Okay.
And I went in there. I'm like, okay, what am I going to pitch? Because their format was you sit in a circle, like 80 people around the chairs, and then the person whose turn it was to pitch would go up into the middle and hold the microphone. And I thought to myself, what am I going to sell here? There's so many life coaches. Because I heard like 4 other life coaches, right, come to the stage. And I thought to myself, well, everyone here is pitching 60-second pitches. I'm pretty good at writing and speaking. So I went up there and I go, yeah, I teach people how to do 60-second pitches. And it worked out.
So what did you go there for? I mean, what was the intention?
Purely for networking. Purely for networking. I was told that when you're in business, you have to do this thing called networking, right? Because my background is in medical research. I had no idea about business. Yeah. My dad owned a noodle shop, so I understood that that's something that you could choose to do. But I'm Chinese. My parents wanted me to go to uni, become some sort of doctor, scientist, or corporate climber, right?
Yeah.
And when I became a medical research scientist, my mum was over the moon. Man, that impressive little title with the Monash University thing on it. It was amazing for her.
But you went with that medical background. You went to a networking meeting. But what was the intention of that meeting? What was the intention of that networking?
Well, the intention of the networking was to start building business networks and obviously make money. That's the goal, right? Because what happened was this is what happened. So in medical research, I was part of this study that looked at dementia, right? And these participants who were all 70 and over come to research wanting to contribute and give back to the greater good. You know, it's all volunteer work. And what would happen is they'll undergo some testing for our data collection, but then it would reveal to us that maybe that they are suffering Alzheimer's or on the way to suffering Alzheimer's. So I went and learned coaching skills, life coaching, communication, even sales skills to better facilitate those conversations with them and their family during that tough time, because their family always wanted to pull them out of the research study to, you know, not stress them out too much. And by pulling them out of the research study, anyone who understands research, retention of numbers is everything. You know, if your sample starts shrinking, the research is no longer viable, right? If it gets past a certain point. So I was like, oh, I got to learn these communication skills. How do I speak to them better? How do I make them feel more comfortable? And that's how I got into coaching. And then by doing some side coaching as part of my practice, I started to build a small business. And then I thought to myself, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm going to make $250,000 within the first 6 months. Like they sell to you at the program, right? But obviously that didn't happen. But the intention going there, was to start this game of small business, which I had no real familiarity with. And I just wanted to grow.
Well, you know what? My mom asked me the other day. She said she runs a translation business. And she says, so she was talking about business sizes. And she's like, oh, I must be extra small business. And I'm like, no, you're still a small business. Like anything up to $20 million is a small business. It's like even in that small business game, you still have some really big players.
That's crazy, right? Because people don't understand that the definition of small business in Australia is like if you have 0 to 200 people in your organization, you're still considered small business.
Isn't it?
Yeah, and I heard that big business, you know, like when you think about Coles, Myer, and Disney and all that, they only make up like I think 0.1% of all business in the world. Like that huge multi-billion-dollar company, they only make up a very small percentage. And most of the business in Australia is small business, something like 90% plus, I think it is.
Well, I went out for dinner with a company that they have 15,000 employees worldwide.
Whoa.
That is insane.
Yeah.
We have 8.
I know.
And that's enough to cause a bit of strife, like with HR and stuff. But 15,000, that's just tremendous.
Just like our friend Johan says, all right, when you grow a business, you make 15,000 staff members means 15,000 times more problems.
Exactly. Dude, what do we got here? We got from our lovely assistant Leah Steglinski, who's behind the camera. You guys can't see her, but she got us some organic kombucha.
Have you ever had kombucha before?
I have. I haven't had this apple crisp one though.
So I got a funny story about the kombucha. So I was going to a meeting, right? Quite an important meeting with my previous business partner. And he stopped off at a health food store to get some things that only you can get at health food stores. And he's like, do you want a drink? And I was like, oh, I heard about this stuff called kombucha, right? I think that it would be really good to have. Now, what I didn't know is that kombucha is fermented. I didn't know then. And it's very gassy, right? So I opened the bottle and it fizzed out, but I was like, all right, fizzy drink. And then I decided to scull like 3/4 of the bottle. So I go into the meeting and I like need to burp every like 10 to 15 minutes. And like the really messed up, can we swear on this podcast?
We can.
Like, the really fucked up thing was I had Vietnamese food. So I had like fish sauce, on the dressing. And the burps, like you could taste the fish sauce. And I'm like, I am so screwed here. So you're trying to hold it in, right? Like, when you're trying to hold in the burp as it travels up the throat and you're like swallowing and it's going back up and down.
It just like it multiplies in effect.
Yeah. So I didn't know that this stuff is some powerful shit. Dude,
so
I'm worried about drinking this.
That's the worst. Right, we should have got
No, it's all good.
What are you doing to us? She's laughing. She knows. Dude, let's give it a go. Right. By the way, I love this because the marketing that they've done on this, they started off in a like a big bottle.
Yeah.
And now they're doing it in these sizes. They've just completely revolutionized.
Yeah. That's very
Isn't that
clever.
amazing? And this is so easy to make.
Yeah. I see that a lot of places make it and you can get it from a tap or something, right?
Yeah. So we make it at home.
Yeah. Oh, you make it at home?
And it's nice, yeah.
What is it made from?
It's just like, I think it's like a Chinese bacteria.
Yeah.
And the bacteria grows into like a SCOBY. And then like you flavor it. So like it's this island, it's like that big. It's just, it looks disgusting. It's disgusting, right? So actually, we have a funny story about your business partner, Johan. We gave him one.
Yeah.
And he took the SCOBY was on a plate.
Yeah.
And he woke up because his wife put it on a plate to change the liquids. And he woke up and he thought it was pancakes. Oh. So he got a fork and knife and he cut it and he's going to eat it. Yeah. I don't know what would happen if he ate it. Maybe disastrous. How is it? How's the apple crisp?
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. You know, the first sip, it almost feels like it's going to be alcoholic, but then it doesn't have that alcoholic hit. Right?
Well, a guy in this building, his son is coming out with they're in the drink business, and he's coming out with an alcoholic kombucha.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And I said this like 3 years ago, like that's going to be the thing. It's just, you just need to know people to get it done.
See, it's the world is full of great ideas.
Everyone has $1 million idea. You just have to execute it, right?
That's right. The execution is the hard part. I think I saw what's his name, Ashton Kutcher say that, right? When at one of the awards ceremonies I got, he said that people, because he's a really successful businessman now. He's not just an actor.
I know.
And then he said something like, there's always great ideas and $1 million ideas, but the problem is the hard work that people need to put in, and most people are not willing to do that. Right?
Yeah. That's it. Like, how many people do you know that stay back at the office until 11 at night just working on what they have to get done?
Yeah.
Like, that's rare. And they're usually the ones that succeed.
Well, I want to ask you about that, right? So I have seen this culture.
I'm burping now. I know.
You get that, right? Like,
sorry, everyone listening. I'm sorry. I'm just going to have to like cover this up.
So like, you know, that culture of Gary V, for example, who's all about hard work, which obviously I subscribe to as well. Like I think it's really important to put in the hard work.
Yeah.
And then I see this counterculture online. I think it's maybe from the Mind Valley guys or something like that, where it's not about hard work, it's about mindset, or you could be doing hard work down the wrong track, which actually causes more issues. So I feel like there's such opposing ideas where one is hard work, one is like, no, you don't have to work hard, you have to work smart. But every time I see someone work smart, they're still working hard.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think it all means?
Well, you know, those Mind Valley people, I think it's not targeted to the people that are still climbing. Like, I feel like once you get past, say an annual salary of, say, 500,000, right, it's a different ball game.
Yeah.
Right. 1 million, it's different. 10 million, it's completely different, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones that need all that mindfulness, because I think anything past, say 200,000, even if you're a CEO or something, is still a pressure that's unprecedented. Yeah. Because even if you're not running your own business, right? Your bosses, they expect a lot more from you.
Yeah.
Right, because they want value for money as well. No, they're not going to pay anyone 200,000 a year for them just to sit around. Yeah, unless your daddy owns the company, right?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying in terms of who it should be for, especially those who are already in a particular space where there's a lot of evolution. But the thing is that the things like The Secret, like Gary Vee, and all of them, the followers are the regular people on climbing. Like, you look at the conventions that Gary Vee's at, you have the young girls and guys putting their hands up and I'm about to start this, what should I do? And it's all about hard work, right? And then on my YouTube, I don't put any of my Google account, I don't put any of my personal information, so they don't know how successful I am, really. And I still get those targeted ads. So I wonder, when you're coming up, when you need that stuff the most, because I find that most people, they study that stuff intensely, right, at the beginning of their business journey. It's a bit hard for me.
The other thing that I notice Gary always says, when someone comes up to me and says, Gary, I'm thinking of starting this business. You know, what's the first step I take? Yeah. The answer that he gives is like, if you really wanted it, you would have started already. Yeah. Like, if you grind, like if you've got it in you, if you find that passion plus the ability to work hard, like, it'll just come to you. You wake up the next day and just get it done. Yeah. It happened with me with my charity.
Yeah.
If we can plug that, it's the winter care package.
Winter care package, doing amazing work in Melbourne.
Thank you, sir.
Here, led by Nico Brigi. Beautiful man.
Thank you. Oh my, I'm blushing now. We're gonna have to cut this podcast. So I woke up. I went to bed one night. I was like, I felt this overwhelming feeling of guilt. I'd come back from Noosa, and I was lying in bed, like I was living there, working on my business, and I came back, and I was freezing. I came back in the middle of winter, completely freezing. I had like a jumper, pants. I had like 2 blankets. The heater was on. And I had this feeling of guilt for some reason. Like I felt privileged, right?
Yeah.
The next day, I said, I'm going to do something. The next day, I jumped on board and I opened up an account, a GoFundMe account. Within 2 weeks, we had raised like I think $1,500 or $3,000, right? So when that passion and the drive is there, right, you do it. You'll get it done. And you'll stay up all hours of the night to get it done.
Yeah. You know what is coming to me right now? It's like, I said that I'm going to take up drawing for the past like a year. And I've been telling people, my mom's like, the worst thing you can do is like tell people that you're going to do something and not do it.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, yeah, you're right.
Dude, what are you doing? Just get your pen and paper. We'll start right now. What is this?
That's amazing. So is that how it happened?
Yeah.
Well, so you got this.
It's just this drive.
And
the drive.
Yeah.
Like you can get motivated, right? But that motivation dies off. But when you've got the drive, like the drive is what takes you to the next level.
Yeah, I've heard that differentiation between inspiration and motivation, right? Motivation is external, where it's never long lasting. But if you're inspired, it's self-generating from the inside, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And that happened with me with GorillaCo as well.
Yeah.
I had this drive, like to make it happen. Because I had the skill sets. Like I've been doing it for like 10 years. I just needed to package it together better. And I would work 16 hours a day. I'd leave the office at 11 at night. And it's just crazy. Just come in at like 6 or 7 in the morning and just don't leave until late at night. And that was what built it up to what it is. Now we have 7 staff. And instead of me doing all the hard work, I pass that on to people who are more capable than me, who are better. So like I stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Because they're the ones that get things done. And I just manage and I make sure people when they need help, they've got me there.
Well, I think maybe what you said there might be the answer to the question that I posed, right? Is that there's hard work and there's smart work. Yeah. And I think perhaps success is the person who can combine a bit of the both, right? Because what you're describing there is good leadership. Because you could have, because when I look at my dad when he worked in his restaurant business, he was doing everything, right? He was the head chef and feel like he had to do everything himself. And he was able to retire early, but it was more trading time for money type of work. And I just see him grinding. But then when you describe what you do, is that, okay, you grind up until a certain point and then you find people who are really good at doing the things that can replace you. And then you start implementing your leadership ability, which gives you time to do other things like winter care, right? Exactly. Like a podcast like this. Yeah. So maybe all things is a balance.
If I can just jump in there, what you said is your dad was trading time for money. But the way to build a scalable business is to trade knowledge for money.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you it's unlimited.
Yeah. Knowledge for money. You heard it here first.
That's right. Copyright. So now with GorillaCo, so I've got this one guy in my company named Paul, and he's my right-hand man. Yeah. So when I brought him on, it's actually he didn't apply for a job. We just found each other. Yeah. He just sent me a message. He goes, "Hey, like I like what you're doing. Like what's going on?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool, man. I like what you're doing too. Let's talk." So now I took 7 months. For the first 7 months of him being on board, all I did was just teach him what I know. Yeah. So I replicated myself in him. So he has my entire knowledge set.
Yeah, okay.
And I did that because now he manages staff. He manages all the stuff. He hires, he does everything. So I replaced myself in the company, which gave me extra time to do the other things that I need to do for the company to help it grow. Yeah. Right? So the next step here is that we build a team of me, right? Of all the knowledge that I have on how to build businesses, right? Because then you build a team around that and then they're the ones that build the businesses for you. So I'm building a business from scratch.
Well, I'll ask you a good question then, because with this new role as CEO, one of the things that I've had to manage now is dealing with a lot of people. Yeah. Now, working with other entrepreneurs who have their own businesses, it turns out is very different from working people who just work for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you got to treat them differently, and the expectation is different. How do you keep up the culture and the drive and the motivation or inspiration within them?
I have Monday morning meetings, right? Every single Monday. And my team have access to me, but in a hierarchy sort of way, right? So they like the people that are like that have just come on board, they connect with the people above them, and then they connect with the people above them. Okay. So it kind of like a pyramid.
Okay.
But
so they don't ring a golden gong, and when you hear it,
exactly.
you come out of the giant
doors. Just in a chair like this. I'm like, let me answer your questions,
that's right.
son. I give him my head. No, I don't do that. So it's important for me is to track their progress.
Yeah.
Right. Not because like I don't want to know that they're doing the work. Like I expect them to do the work, but more importantly is to not overload them with work.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people just say, no, you've got spare time here, just do more work.
Yeah.
But I would rather them learn the processes in place so that the culture stays the same.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that this is done like this is done like that. And when you have systems in place, right, the people, when they have an argument or something goes wrong, they blame the system rather than blaming each other.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And it's important to keep track of that. And if I can offer them any help at all, I say like, just let me know what I can do better. Like what can I do better so that your job is easier?
Yeah.
Because like when you look at Silicon Valley, when you look at all those companies, like it's important to look at the workload that they have. No one's stressed out. I mean, sure, they're stressed out on some projects, but they do that because they want to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Because they believe in the company's mission.
No, I understand what you're saying there. It's sort of like when you're trying to teach somebody a new sport, or like how I teach my daughter a new sport. You want to keep flooding them with the next thing, right? Because like, oh, you can do the fourth thing, the fifth thing, because if you chain these 5 things together, that's how you get to that ultimate outcome of a great, forehand or something like that. But you get them to practice just the 2 or 3 things consistently, and that builds their base, right? And their ability to take on more and see more things just comes at the right time rather than overloading them. So I really like that. And I really like what you said about making the environment so that they blame the system rather than blaming each other when something goes wrong. Because the system can always be fixed.
Exactly.
And there's no emotional connection.
Exactly. And if you look at the system and everyone's always blaming the system, then you just have to revise the system.
Yeah.
To make it easier, because they're good people.
Yeah.
Right? They're not whingers. Because you don't hire whingers, right?
Yeah.
They're good people. And then they're the ones that tell you that something's broken.
Yeah, no, I really like that. That happened to me recently, where I sent out to my graphic designers to create my new email signature, right? And they returned the HTML code to me with the incorrect size, right? So my first reaction was, oh, come on, you're a graphics designer, you couldn't even put the standard sizing, just because I Google, I'm like, can you Google this stuff? And it's like, yeah, standard sizing for email signatures, like 420 by something like that, right? Yeah. I'm like, why would you hand this up to me? And then I realized that, no, I didn't give you a proper brief. I just said, go make me an email signature. I needed to take responsibility for it. In fact, one of my favorite books is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Mainly the first chapter, like the other principles are fairly standard, but that first chapter about, as a leader, you have to take ownership at every level. Yeah. And he describes this story where he was in Afghanistan with his teams, and it turns out that what his team thought were enemies on the other side, and they were firing each other for quite a considerable amount of time, turned out to be friendly. No. But there was some miscommunication. Something happened, right? And they were like firing at each other and pinning each other down until they finally realized that it was actually fellow American forces. And then when he went back to the camp, everyone was very, very down about it, because I don't think anyone died, but somebody got injured, and it's just a horrible thing to be a part of, right? And when they had the team meeting and their superiors were there, Jocko went up to everyone and said, whose fault was this, right? And different people put up their hands like, yep, I think it's my fault because I didn't communicate the change, or I think it's my fault because I didn't translate it to the Afghani soldiers, so they didn't know in the outer position. And all these people putting up their hands saying that it's their fault. And when you listen to the detail, you're thinking to yourself, yeah, that probably did contribute. You are to blame. But Jocko's like, no. He says, as the leader, I have to take ownership. It's my fault, right? But he said it not because, you need to blame everything on me. It's that, no, because there must have been a flaw in the system, in the way that we're doing this for this to happen, because that's what I am actually in charge of. Yes, I understand things change and shift, but I saw that the change and shifts were not supported by the system, and that's how we got into this situation of friendly fire, and he took ownership. And I thought that was really powerful, because I think as a leader, that's one of the most important things you do. Whenever I want to give feedback, or even critical feedback, in the moments where I can open with how I can take ownership of my input into this particular failure or whatever it is, it changes the context of the entire conversation.
Absolutely.
Just the way that it feels in discussing it. It's just a huge thing. It's an amazing principle to live by as a leader.
Yeah, someone said to me the other day, we were having a conversation, and I may have done something wrong, and they said to me, like, they stopped me and they said, "You're coming in a bit hot." And it stopped me in my tracks, and I'm like, shit, here I am. All right, let me rephrase. Let me start again. And it makes you think, like, don't be so emotional when you're trying to take charge of something. Like, see it for what it is. Like, see it that it's there's something wrong. Like in that case, something wrong with the system.
Yeah. Because so easy to blame people first, right?
Yeah. Because it's easy.
That's right.
It's so I can sync them.
No, but did you just burp?
No, it was the clap.
No, I thought you just.
Well, we'll see what we pick up. Dude, these are nice. Are you enjoying this?
Yeah, I do like them. I can see why people really enjoy them. I have a friend whom I met on my travels to Cambodia, right? So one of the things that I did a few years ago, and in fact, it relates to our topic of business failures, because sometimes there are failures even within success.
Oh, yeah.
So what I mean by that is I was running my business, developing the pitches and presenting and all that. And at the end of 2016, I had a good year. Like, I had 2 workshops that I was always running, and I ran it every single month, 80% to 100% capacity.
Wow.
And it was a great year, right? It was a great year. I even have a photo on Instagram, me like holding a beer, cheersing myself, and like, to a good year. But the funny thing was, at Christmas, right, I sat back and reflected, and I thought to myself, man, it's been a good year in some ways, but in other ways, I think I haven't really achieved much. And people always ask me why did I say that, right? Here's the kombucha coming up, guys.
That's right. The audience is loving this. Someone listening to the card like,
So like, I was like, why did I think this? And I thought to myself, I got into this place of security doing the 3 things that I knew, which was workshop number 1, workshop number 2, and one-on-one consulting, right? The 3 things that I knew. And that's all I did. And it felt like being back in a job, because I had no place to really learn, no place to grow. I had this, scarcity mindset that if I don't keep going out hunting for these replacement workshop attendees, then, everything's going to fall through, and then I have to go back to a real job and be a failure in front of my friends and all that. And the thought dawned on me that maybe I didn't actually know anything about business.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing. And I think a lot of people fail in business because they either won't admit it to themselves, or they're just ignorant of the fact that doing business, so this is the gripe that I have with multi-level marketing people, right? Is that when they do the sell to the mums and dads, is that, it's super easy and all that. It's not really business. You do it in your spare time. But when you actually go into it, you realize that, no, you actually have to run a proper business. And you have to take tax considerations and all these different things that require you to learn more and more and more. And if you don't do them properly, they can actually really affect your life, right? Yeah. So I was like, I knew nothing about business, and I decided to shut down my business for 3 months in 2017. Right? And I went hiking and, spiritual journey and opened up. And what dawned on me was the need for contribution and giving back to the greater good. Yeah, because when you go into business, I think when we talk about failures, right, is that a lot of it has to do with this over focus of the self. And that's just, I'm not saying in a necessarily a selfish way, a deliberately selfish way, but it's more like, okay, I shifted from this place of certainty, a paycheck that comes with super and annual leave and sick leave and maternity leave and paternity leave and all of that, to working my own business. And all of a sudden, every minute that I spend not doing things that generate money is my livelihood, my house and my family on the line.
Shit,
right?
that's absolutely
so
correct.
So that's the thing, is that part of the failures in my business is whenever I get into that space where I'm so self-focused to the exclusion of everything else, I find that I do worse, make less deals, get into more of an emotional funk, depression or anxiety of any level. I find that when I'm in that self-focused state, that's when it happens. And when that happens, as the old saying goes, your business is a reflection of your life, and your life is a reflection of your business if you are an entrepreneur. And when I get into those modes, that's when it's the worst thing. So when I went to contribution, I went to Cambodia to teach kids my particular skill of communication with Project Gen Z.
Yeah.
And
give them a shout out.
Yeah. So Project Gen Z.
I love them.
Yeah. Nick, who thank you so much for what you did. We had a charity event, and Nick provided his videography services for free as a donation
you're welcome.
to the charity, and it was just amazing, right? So Project Gen Z was founded by Liz Volpe, who on a holiday in Cambodia at Sunrise Children's Village. She wanted to visit the Children's Village because it's run by Geraldine Cox, quite a prolific Australian figure. And she saw these kids and wanted to do something for them, give something to them, but she didn't know how, right? Just giving money is not enough. You need to do something proper. So she came back to Australia and she called up her entrepreneur friends, her successful entrepreneur friends.
Because Liz is a very... successful
she is. She ran a marketing company.
Tycoon, right?
Tycoon, a little bit. She had a successful marketing company and events company where she actually ran the after party for Kanye when he was here quite a few years back. So that's like the level that she was playing at. And then she called up her entrepreneur friends, one of them being Andrew Morello, who won the first Australian Apprentice with Mark Boris. And they got together and decided to do this thing called the Dare to Dream workshop, which is sort of like The Apprentice, where we teach the kids the business skills that they need, like branding, financials, leadership, sales, and all that. And then we'd get them to design and create a business and actually sell physical services and products out into Cambodia and to businesses and see how much money they can generate, which would go back to the children's village. And then obviously they'll get prizes where, some might get, a couple of $1,000s for education and things like that, right? So we went to Cambodia to do that. And when I came back from Cambodia, I was changed dramatically. And I don't think I've recovered yet from my trip to Cambodia back in 2017. Because one of the things that that happened to me was I discovered how much time and energy I was wasting staring at my screen, staring at one of these things. Right?
Absolutely.
And so worried about how people were judging me. And every time I made a post, checking the likes, checking the comments, making sure I like the comments, making sure that, it's when I hit the share button, did it really share? Because why aren't I getting as many notifications? And it brought out this sort of individual or version of myself that I didn't really enjoy.
Yeah.
And when we talk about business, right, I've been finding it very difficult getting back into the social media.
We've had a conversation about this.
Yeah. And I'm not sure how to balance that, right? And we're talking about I'm talking about this is because it relates to the kombucha about what you consider a vice or not a vice, right? So my friend, all she drinks now is kombucha. In fact, she doesn't drink alcohol anymore, and she drinks kombucha teas and healthy stuff, and she's become vegan and all that. But she does a lot of social media, and I asked her the question. I'm like, oh, well, you remove all this vice from your life, and your life and business has flourished.
Yeah.
But then, you do a lot of social media because that's where you share your truth, which is fantastic, right? Because she has a podcast herself. And how do you balance that? How do you balance that in your own mind? Because I've been finding it difficult to balance it in my own mind. And she says, you think too much. You think too much, and you just need to do what is true to you. And if being on social media feels right because you're sharing your message, that's fine. If you feel that you can enjoy having a drink while you party or hang out with friends and it doesn't affect how you are and how you show up, then that's fine. And I guess...
But there's a component there, depending on what your product is.
Yeah.
Like if your product is you, or rather in your business, there's two components. There's the marketing and there's the branding. Right? If you're the product, you need to brand yourself.
Yeah.
You need to appear in whatever way it is that your target market needs you to be. And I know that's very vain to say,
Mm.
but it's the truth.
So is that what your target market needs you to be, or what you authentically want to be, and what target market you want to attract?
Well, it depends. If you're building the target market around you, right, then be yourself.
Yeah.
But if you're building your company around your target market, then you need to be what they need you to be.
Yeah.
Like, right? I mean, for example, like a sexy car, they make the car sexy for the audience, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Right?
No, you're absolutely right. I definitely agree with you, because
But
that's how business is done.
there's
Well, it's
that
more
fine line, right?
It's not just the fine line though. This goes back to our previous question is of the Gary Vee question, right? Is that I hear these opposing principles of how to be in business and be in people, and I wonder whether the confusion is what causes the business failures, right?
Yeah.
Because on one hand, we talk about, even in corporate speak, customer centricity, meaning putting the customer first, building everything about their wants and needs, which is what you're talking about regarding the sexy car. But then no matter where I go regarding the individual, whether it be a CEO or whatever, and they're talking about themselves and how they're dealing with their ability to lead a business or build a business, the words that always come up is authenticity and vulnerability and alignment and all these different things.
I'm not so sure.
So that's what I mean.
Yeah,
I think this is an interesting, because I don't think people say I'm not so sure enough to this question, because instantly I want authenticity and vulnerability straight away. But I think to myself, but then how does that fall in line with actual business principles?
Yeah.
Right?
So like on that, right? Whinging, like being vulnerable, right, and saying, like, opening up is you see the pattern all the time. Someone opens up, right, and then they get all these likes and all these. They might sell some products or whatever, but then because they see that pattern, they keep doing it, and then they just drop off because no one wants negativity in their life.
Yeah,
everyone wants positivity.
Yeah.
Right. So what happens there is that they've taken that advice and they're vulnerable and they open up. Right. But no one wants to be around any negative people. Right. Like, think about your parents, for example. You're around them, like you go to Christmas dinner, you love them so much, but then they start being negative because they're just, like, for me, they're woke parents, right? That's just what they do. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, okay, I've had enough. It's time to go.
Yeah.
And that's just for like a few hours. Although I love my mum. Mum, I love you so much. But I think it's that negative thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's good to get on the tabloids or whatever, like for personalities.
Yeah.
But then they drop off.
Yeah.
Straight away.
Yeah.
Look what happened to Jim Carrey. Like, this is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Like, he became vulnerable.
Yes.
And now he's nowhere.
Yeah.
He's in a small group he's in a small group, but he's nothing when he was positive. Like, he was positive, he was so much more.
Yeah.
But that I'm not saying that's a good thing. Like, I think that's a sad thing, because you change yourself to be what the audience wants you to be. But ultimately, that's what sells.
Well, wouldn't you say that Jim Carrey, because I know that Jim Carrey's hit the whole DMT mushroom thing, and now he is an enlightened individual, sharing those type of bits of information and lifestyle. So maybe that's by choice,
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying regarding negativity, and I think this is where the comment sections are going to go crazy, right? Because, like, okay, negativity versus being open versus sharing your journey so that everyone knows that not alone, which again is also against, say, for example, being stoic. Right, because we know that entrepreneurs need intrinsically a lot of resilience. Yeah. Right. So how do you balance that all out? And sometimes, I hate going back to this rhetorical device of it's all got to be a balance. Right? We got to make it a balance.
Well, ultimately, for your own sanity, it has to be a balance.
Yeah.
But think about the people that make billions of dollars.
Yeah.
They're not sane.
Yeah.
Like, they've given up their family, they've given up friends, they've given up everything for the money.
Yeah.
That's a little sad, but it's for me, like, I know I couldn't give up family for money.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Like, if someone offered me $1 billion to say, you dump your partner, dump your soulmate, and you can never see her again for $1 billion, I couldn't do it.
Looks like you're safe. Even $1 billion won't get you from it.
But that also makes me realize, like, I will never be at that status of $1 billion. because of my values, where my value set are so strong that like for me, family's first. But then there's a balance. Like I want to make $100 million. Like I'm finding that balance.
Yeah.
But I will never make $1 billion. Not with this attitude.
Yeah. she's like, damn.
What are the loopholes? Let's find some loopholes. But on that note, like, is it better to be MBA trained as opposed to not being? Right. The perfect example is, I don't know where I heard this. I want to give credit to whoever said it, but I can't remember. Maybe Tim Ferriss. Anyway. Maybe we get some backlinks from Tim Ferriss if I say it enough.
Right. Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss loves GorillaCo.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, that's going in.
That's it.
So I think it was him. So he said the difference between someone that's, say, Harvard MBA, right, as opposed to some outback just simpleton, right? They both buy a McDonald's franchise, right? The MBA from Harvard goes off and says, no, I can do it better. I'm going to make all these changes because I'm from Harvard. I know what I'm doing, right? So they make all these changes, right? The country guy just buys the franchise and says, okay, I'm just going to do step 1, do this. Step 2, turn the fryer. That the country person doesn't change any of the processes, right? Within a year, the MBA guy closes down because he went and changed. He thought he was better because he had an MBA. And he changed all the processes, whereas the country guy didn't, and he succeeds, right? Because that thing about, like, I have this knowledge that I've learned, but I don't have any experience. Where McDonald's has 100 years of experience or whatever it is, right? So the MBA guy goes and changes all the systems to do what he's learned to do, and the country guy doesn't, and the country guy succeeds. He makes way more money than the other guy. So that's the balance, and like they're real world case studies.
Yeah, definitely.
I can't cite where they're from, but I'm sure if you Google it.
No, for sure. Like that's the thing about education, right? Bill Gates didn't complete his Harvard degree, did he? When he came up with his entrepreneurial idea that changed the world. What is it? Elon Musk says, I've never been to Harvard, but I hire people who do. Who've been to Harvard, right?
Yeah.
So there is a balance, and of course, there's obviously the really highly educated people who've been very successful.
Yeah, but they're statistical outliers. Like those guys are like they would have been successful in anything.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
if they went to uni, if they completed college, whatever they were doing it in, they would have been successful.
Well,
just because they're just like that kind of person. Like not everyone could drop out of college and say and be successful.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
the majority couldn't. I think
the fundamental thing is if you talk psychology, right?
Yeah.
So Big 5 factor analysis, which is I guess the leading empirical personality, tests and all that. They say that number 1, IQ is a predictor of success. Obviously, the smarter you are, then the more likely you are to succeed. And then they said the other thing was conscientiousness, meaning that you're good with detail, good with planning and doing the work and putting the effort in and not being distracted easily and things like that. That's another predictor of success. So I guess it doesn't matter whether you go to school or for the full, master's, PhD degree, but if you have those traits and you are guided correctly, then you can be successful.
Dude, have you ever done an IQ test?
Yeah, I've done IQ tests before.
Have you?
I have.
I did my first one when I think I was like 25 or something.
Yeah.
I know I wanted to join the Air Force to be a pilot.
Yeah.
And I was there and I was doing all these things and like all these questions kind of like, they didn't make any sense.
Yeah. It's hard, man.
It's so hard.
It's hard. I did the IQ test and I realized that I'm not as smart as I think.
Yeah, damn, I should have studied. I should have studied.
Yeah. But I remember what we were talking about originally, right, was vulnerability, right? Finding balance and this, I guess, a dichotomy between being stoic and being open, right? So I think it's interesting to talk about this because we're talking about business failures and business success.
Yeah.
And I get the sense that the culture right now is all about vulnerability and that being stoic, especially in the male space, is that, no, we've been stoic for too long.
Yeah.
We need to be more vulnerable. And that's definitely true. That's definitely true because, people who suffer emotional strain or any form of like depression, anxiety, a lot of the times they do close up, right?
Yeah.
But where do you, I guess I'm asking you the question, what do you think about this? Where do you draw the line, or what are your thoughts around how much stoicism and, pull up your bootstraps mentality do you need in order for it to actually be beneficial? Or when is it too much?
I like the idea that when you're in business mode,
Mm.
you're in business mode,
Mhm.
right? You do what you need to do to get the job done for yourself, to bring an income in, right? As well as get the job done for the client. And just grind away and do what you have to, and just no emotions, just get it done, right? It's a transaction. But I'm a massive believer in having a support network that you can unload your thoughts. Like, have someone that really loves you at home, right? That's so important. Someone that you can go home and they can just hold you. Like, they just know that something's wrong and they hold you, and like, you just let it out, like, and that they listen. So I always say, like, with my partner, I'm the rock for her when she needs me, and she's my rock when I need her. Right? You can't have two rocks at the same time, because they just, they just clash. But I feel like have a small group of friends that really care about you. You don't need a million friends. You just need like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And a partner that really loves you as well. And I think that is where you can really just be vulnerable.
Yeah. Okay, I never thought about it like that.
But when it comes to business, like, be that business person. You're in business to make money. Like, that's when people say they're in business to make a difference, right? Cool, that's cool, right? Like, probably 10% of it, that's true. But ultimately, if you're not making money, if you're not bringing money in, then you don't have a business.
Yeah, you can't make a difference until you can take care of yourself before you take care of others.
Yeah.
Look, I like your separation of, okay, when it comes to the business aspect, you sort of need to compartmentalize in your brain that this is where all the stoicism, hard work focus should be. But when you are on the personal side, you need to be able to go to a space or a safe space to be emotionally free. I guess it's where they cross over, right? Because I imagine that as a leader, there's the emotional strain that comes from having to deal with people. Say you're having a bad year, and people's livelihoods, their salaries, the things that feed their family are based on you, and you have to show up to them that it's still strong. You're still strong, and you've got the right focus. But then inside, you feel that turmoil, and I guess that's where you go to the people who you love, and
that's tough. Like, I've always said, like, when you have a business and you have staff and you have a partner at home, you're in 2 relationships. Like, one of them is with your soulmate, right? The most beautiful person in your life. And the other is a group of people that are the most amazing people in your life. Like, they work for you. Like, isn't that amazing? Like, someone gives up the most valuable resource that we have on earth, and that's time, and they give it to you. And, like, tell me what to do with this valuable resource. Like, how could you? I don't understand people that are just assholes to their staff. That is like the worst thing you could ever do to someone. They're giving up everything they have for you, and they trust you, and they trust you to lead them. It's like so people need to take that. That's like a serious responsibility.
Geez, anybody listening to this, I reckon that bit you said right there. Imagine framing any new staff member that comes on board to your company, or opening your meetings, right? Monthly meeting every so often with that level of recognition. It's like, hey, I want to recognize that you are giving your most valuable resource that you have, something that money can't buy, which is your time. Not really, right? Because your time you can never get back, and you're choosing to give it to me as opposed to something else. And making them feel and understand that's how you view them. Now, that's some powerful leadership. I love that. Yeah, I've never thought about it that way.
And I make sure I tell them every Monday, like when we all get together. It's important. And I think that's why I've built a team that is just so strong. And when someone's down, we pick them up. Like, how can we make your day better? And I think that's how to build a strong foundation. And the culture that you're talking about earlier. I think it's got a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've employed into our business right now with the team members is I'll think to myself, how do I anchor for my team members their sense of not only belonging but also their potential, right? So speaking of why I'm focusing on potential is that, we've all heard about the business bottom lines, right? So, profit is the bottom line. And fortunately, we're moving away from that. And there's that triple bottom line where they talk about people, profit, and planet, right? So that's why you see corporate social responsibility policies and this huge focus on culture and HR for people. And I've been part of a roundtable this past year where we're looking at innovation. And the chairperson of the roundtable and one of my mentors talks about in this new era of business, in this fourth industrial revolution, there needs to be 7 bottom lines. I was like, holy shit, 7, right? What do you mean by 7? And he goes, here are the 7. Let's see if I can remember them, right? It's so people, purpose, potential, performance, profit, planet, and philanthropy.
Wow,
that if you
well done.
Yes, I remember
that's
that,
pretty amazing.
Yeah. So imagine if you guide your business with those 7 bottom lines. And what I really love about that 7 is that these performance and potential, these words apply not only externally, like as in the service that you provide to your customers, but also internally, right? Because if I frame that it is an unacceptable bottom line to go beyond, that my people need to feel like they are achieving their potential, that they can see their potential, and they are making it come to life with their performance driven by purpose, right? So imagine thinking that way about what is the minimum acceptable standard in your business. So I thought about how can I achieve this? And we all love stories, right? You're a storyteller as a videographer. And I thought to myself, okay, why is it that our society loves stories so much? Why is that? Like, what would you say? Why is it that we love stories so much?
I'd say because it's the oldest way of communication that we've ever had.
Yep.
To
Definitely.
pass on like what are they called?
Like wisdom, knowledge.
Cautionary tales.
Cautionary tales, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, yes, that's absolutely right. To pass on that wisdom, cautionary tales as well. But I also find that the reason why stories are so powerful is the metaphorical or symbolic expression of what our human journey is, right? So when you think about things like the hero's journey, which is the classic storytelling structure, it talks about how the only way to evolve is that you actually have to go through challenge and adversity first, right? And then when you finally go through enough challenges and adversity, you reach the dragon, the final dragon, right? And if you defeat the dragon, you'll win the ultimate prize, whether it be, the sword or it'll be the, the elixir of life, whatever it is. And then you come back a different person, right?
Yeah.
That's what essentially the hero's journey is about. But I also believe that stories are really powerful for this symbolism, because when we see stories of superheroes, of, fantasy, Harry Potter, whatever it may be, the ones that we key into the most, the ones that we feel an affinity for, are usually a reflection of the ultimate self that we want to be, the best version of ourselves that we want to be, right? So for me personally, I've always loved the story of Superman, but not only because he's, overpowered and all that, which is, a lot of reason why people love Superman, because he's overpowered, he's a symbol of hope and all that. But when you actually look into the Superman story, it's more about an individual who does have unlimited godlike power, but always chooses responsibility and finding another way over the easy route. Because he could just snap the necks of every villain that he meets, right? And basically change.
A nice roundhouse kick.
Yeah, like
to the teeth.
that's right. But he always chooses responsibility and the greater good. And as a leader, I think that's really powerful. Now, what's really interesting is that do you game? Do you game
No,
at
not
all?
really.
I don't really game either, but there's a really popular DC game called Injustice.
Okay.
Yeah, Gods Among Us, which is a DC fighting game, right? And Injustice actually is come from an alternate story where Superman is married to Lois Lane. They're about to have their baby. And then the Joker decides that, you know what, I'm not going to fuck with Batman anymore. He's too smart. I'm actually going to fuck with Superman because he's much easier, because he's a little bit naive, right? So what he does is that
he's a good boy.
He's a good boy. Yeah, that's right. He's a good boy. And what happens is that he tricks Superman into, going somewhere and sprays Superman with this scarecrow fear gas, which makes him hallucinate. And then what happens is that he hears what he thinks is Doomsday, his ultimate nemesis, right? And he flies towards Doomsday, picks Doomsday up and flies Doomsday up into space so that he has no oxygen and to take him out. And as he's flying up and he gets into space, the gas starts wearing off, and it turns out that he is actually Lois Lane, that he's flown up into space. It's killed him and killed her and his baby, their baby.
No.
And the Joker had actually implanted into her heart where once her heart stops, a nuclear bomb will set off and blow up Metropolis. And that happens, right? So Metropolis gets decimated. And what happens is that Superman flies to where the Joker is, and the Batman has already captured the Joker. And then the Joker's laughing at him, and Superman, in a moment, he makes a choice, which is the choice that Superman makes every single day, right? About leadership or who he needs to be. So normally Superman chooses the better route and he goes, I will not kill, I will not do anything like that. But because he's so overwhelmed, he proceeds to shove his hand through the Joker's chest and kills him. And because of that single choice from that onwards, he falls into that mindset that you see dictators fall into, and we remember we're relating this to business where, okay, I'm over collaboration now. I know what's best. Safety and security is what's best. So now I'm going to call the shots.
Wow.
And the governments, and then he stops all these wars, right? So initially it's really good because all the wars are stopped, and but then he becomes this controlling, Hitler-like figure, right? It's like, no, you have to go, you can't do this, you can't question this, you can't do that, because it's all about safety. We've got infinite amount of peace now. What are you talking about? It's all about safety, but no liberty, right? So when we think about anchoring ourselves into these stories, I take that lesson from Superman. I'm like, if I get overly emotional, have a bad quarter of profit and all that, what choices am I going to make? And I have to remember that, am I Superman from the core story, or am I Superman of injustice, right? And you make those choices. So when we're talking about culture, I decided that what would be a good way to help businesses grow or help teams grow was that I would anchor my team members to a superhero that reflected their journey, right, and where they needed to be, so that when they're in doubt, they have this North Star, this guiding lighthouse of what would these behaviors, what behaviors do I need to exemplify? What behaviors do I need to, or mindset do I need to have and express right now in order to make sure that I'm always on the right path towards the vision and values of the company, right? So I gave them these characters, and that's helped them, shift their way of thinking.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I learned that, through my failures in my business, where when I'm in chaos and I've got nothing to hold on to, this is the whole "what would Jesus do" band, right? Like, when people are trying to make ethical and moral decisions, they go, "What would Jesus do?" Back then I was so confused, and whenever I was confused, I always made the wrong decision. But now I use these tools like anchoring myself to an archetype or to a superhero, for example. And I'm thinking, okay, so they didn't send me the right email signature sizing. Now, would Superman blast them and yell and scream and all that? No, Superman will find a way to make them walk away feeling empowered that, actually, no, this is about the values, this is about the work ethic and everybody else around us. I'm going to do better so that we can be better, right? And these things come to my mind easily because I've got a figure to anchor it to, compared to just trying to come up with it right there and then.
Dude,
right?
What an amazing way to tie that whole thing up. This is what we started with, and we just tied it all together.
Yeah.
Dude, I want to thank you so much for coming on and doing this with me.
Yes, thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I guess, hey Google, who is the best storyteller that the world's ever seen?
Who are you asking about?
Oh,
Yes.
Eric Chan is the answer.
So there we go. See,
Google, you learned something.
From YouTube.
Eric Chin could be the best magician on the world. Oh, right, look at that. We got Eric Chin. Maybe no, that's not you.
That's not me.
No, that's not you. Well, we don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that's your secret talent.
That's the secret talent. Is that I'm a magician by training. Right?
You do kids' parties on the weekends.
Yeah, that's right. Now, thank you for having me, man. I had a really good time.
Me too, man. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right.